Australia is watching an international airport be built from scratch in real time for the first time in decades. It's Shuka Internet. No, wait, sorry. No, I thought it was a bit further north than that. Oh, wait, there it is. Western Sydney International Airport. Situated in Badgers Creek, perfectly positioned not too far from Sydney, but just the right distance away from Bankstown. Now, if you're not familiar with the project, but you've watched previous videos on my channel, then don't fret, you are in for a treat. This project takes every single important piece of infrastructure that we've seen revolutionized through the construction of other airports and pushed it to an all-new age for airport infrastructure. So let's dive into the details. Looking through the history of airports across the world, almost always a new airport is built because either the current airport is outdated and can't continue supporting a growing modern aviation industry, or it's just simply too busy and has no room to grow. And for my non-Australian viewers, let me make it obvious for you. This is the city of Sydney, and this is Sydney Airport. Plain and simple, it is a heavily suburban area with no room to grow in any direction other than into the harbour, which if you know Australia, you'll know that that's not happening. Which tells us, in simple terms, that Sydney's traffic growth eventually hitting a ceiling was only a matter of time. And such a prediction was one that was obvious enough even for the politicians of Australia, which is really saying something. But again, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I'm not here to say Sydney Airport bad, new airport good. No. Because I want to give you guys the cold hard stats that show in no uncertain terms that Western Sydney Airport was always inevitable. From 2015 to 2019, Sydney Airport saw an average year-on-year increase in annual passenger movements of 3.5%, increasing its yearly passenger movements over those 5 years by a little under 5 million passengers. That's a nice steady growth rate until you look at the change in passenger numbers from 2018 to 2019, and then questions are raised. The year-on-year passenger numbers actually went down by just shy of 1,000 passengers. Almost 44,430,000 passengers moved through Sydney Airport in 2018, while almost 44,429,000 travelled through in 2019. Why the sudden stagnation in passenger movement growth? And remember, the COVID-19 pandemic began in March of 2020, and these stats are measured by calendar year, as indicated by Australia's Bureau of Infrastructure and Transport Research Economics. Well, with no room to grow, stuck in a suburban area and hence limited by a curfew, Sydney Airport is limited by a very clear maximum number of movements per day. And Sydney Airport's passenger data clearly shows us where that ceiling lies. And it is one of the best examples for why a second major airport in Sydney is needed. One that won't have its continual expansion limited by its surroundings, an airport that won't be limited by a curfew, meaning that there are no hard final landing times, as well as the possibility to act as a safety net for any problems that arise outside of Sydney's airport curfew window. Bada bing, bada boom, welcome to Australia Western Sydney International Airport, or WSI. And given that this is a brand new airport, there is no history for me to cover, so instead, we get to jump straight into the good bit, the master plan. And let me tell you, this thing is extensive. It's insane. I mean, look, it even has an entire page just for emojis. The master plan begins by outlining the case for WSI. There's the usual reasons that you'd expect from a new airport, but there's a few additional reasons that stand out as unique to this particular airport. For one, by 2030, Western Sydney is expected to house over 3 million Australians, meaning that providing an airport in the region unlocks a new market of residents in Western Sydney that commute to outside New South Wales. And 3 million is a lot of people. It actually would make Western Sydney the third largest economic area in Australia behind Sydney and Melbourne. There's the standard passenger movement growth estimate that master plans quote, and in this case, it's said that passenger movement demand will jump from 40 to 87 million across the next 20 years. Often, estimates like these are surprisingly moderate too, so it'll be interesting to see how accurate this estimate ends up being. They've also estimated that an airport in Western Sydney would generate an estimated $24.6 billion in direct expenditure by 2060 and contribute a $23.9 billion increase in GDP to the national economy. The plan talks of a slew of state planning considerations, from things as wide-reaching as the National Airport Safeguarding Framework to the more specific considerations like the Western Sydney and Blue Mountains Regional Action Plan. The land set aside for the site of the airport spans 1,780 hectares, and like most airports the world over, the development of WSI is set to be completed across multiple stages. These stages are meticulously designed to allow the airport to become operational before the entire project is complete. And while you're probably thinking, wait, what? They're not sending this out half-baked. This isn't one of those kitchen renos that you start and once the appliances are in, the remainder of the kitchen is left unfinished to procrastinate. Let me explain. First, let's talk about the obvious bits. Stage 1 involves the construction of a 3,700 metre runway on the northwestern portion of the site with an orientation that will give it the name 0523. A full parallel length taxiway will be built alongside the runway with connected taxi lines spanning the full length of the runway. And for all those cowboy airline pilots out there will be high-speed exits, so you can have your fun, I promise. The runway is designed to meet the Cat 3B instrument approach requirements, and for the non-aviation mega nerds out there, the best way to demonstrate the difference between Cat 3B and other lower categories is this. This is Christchurch Airport, an aerodrome yet to receive Cat 3B certification, and this is Christchurch on a foggy day. And this is what happens to an aircraft approaching Christchurch on a foggy day. Cat 3B means the runway is capable of allowing landings during more adverse weather conditions, so for WSI's runway to enter service already equipped at a Cat 3B instrument approach level is thoroughly impressive. The runway will also accommodate an illuminated wind direction indicator, which is pretty cool. Is that like a glow-in-the-dark windsock? I don't know, that could get confusing during a Lenten festival, I guess. Yeah, okay, that was bad. Yeah, okay, my bad. The apron is to consist of around 25 aircraft stands in total, 4 of which are for freight and 21 are for passenger aircraft. It's mentioned a bunch of times in the master plan that this number is subject to changes that may occur during the development process, but so far the stage 1 is on track to provide 21 stands, categorized under Charlie, Echo and Foxtrot. So I guess we're skipping Alpha, Bravo and Delta? Well, at least for now. Cleverly, Stage 1 intends to utilize something called a swing gate. And no, it's not a giant swing that they use to board a plane, although that would be pretty cool. It's a uniquely designed gate that can swing between an international and a domestic operation. It's an innovative and cost-effective solution to construction costs that is becoming more and more common across the world. Australia has a few ports that utilize swing gates already. Take Adelaide, for example, who utilize these large glass dividers to transition a gate for international use whenever needed. So yes, installing swing gates in Stage 1 would allow WSI to save money and resources by only building 19 bays if 2 of the gates can be installed with the necessary additional infrastructure. Then of course there's the installation of Mars that will help make aircraft movements more efficient. Oh, you thought, oh no, that's silly. You're silly. Mars means multi-aircraft ramp system, of course. There's also the intention to add additional space between airside service roadways and the head of stand and back of stand markers to improve the safe distancing of live aircraft. Anyone who drives on the apron will tell you that just like Rohirrim in Lord of the Rings, when the beacon is lit, things can get very dangerous. Of course, Stage 1 can't be completed without the installation of an air traffic control tower. It's been built as a standalone installation located in a secure compound within the airport's boundary, and it's not too far away from the fire rescue and emergency service facilities, built in line with the regulated requirements for emergency services for an airport of the scale of Western Sydney International. I'm sure you've seen other great videos on Western Sydney's intention to have a fully remote ATC tower. It truly is impressive, and it's a really great demonstration of the tech that acts as a test before it can be rolled out at other major arterials in Australia. If you want the full picture on this, Steph Drury did an awesome video covering, and I'll link it above. There really is an impressive number of creative ideas being implemented in the construction of this airport. For one, have any of you Sydney residents wondered where all the earth dug out from the Sydney Harbour Tunnel project went? Oh yes, really. More than 5.5 million tonnes of sandstone from Sydney tunnelling projects was diverted from landfill to be used as a sub-improvement layer for the runway, taxiways and internal roads. We love zero waste legends like Bechtel Engineering for coming up with that idea. They've also made use of all spare space on the roofs of the terminal building, installing over 6,000 solar panels, designing a rainwater catchment system and water tanks that utilise the catchment by feeding it back into the terminal to recycle as much rainwater as possible. The long-term aim is to also produce all of the electrical energy needed on site and without the use of any natural gas in order to really maximise the emissions reduction. And then there's the infrastructure and design of the terminal. We're going to see the use of an advanced baggage handling system that also features in-app baggage tracking, meaning that passengers can now have their baggage misplaced more accurately and efficiently, which is fantastic. The amount of conveyor used in the system totals a staggering 5 kilometers and boasts an astounding 2,000 bag per hour efficiency rate. We spoke about the use of swing gates a moment earlier, and to begin with, WSI will feature 3 of them to accommodate international services. And now, without any further delay, the terminal's architectural design. And I won't even begin to narrate this, just have a look at this. It is incredible. It's set a new incredibly high bar for terminal design within Australian airports. Now, you all saw the beginning of this video. You know full well that the airport's infrastructure and terminal construction is all but complete at this stage. And don't you think for a second that I've forgotten about that. But for opening day in 2026, I've got something very special coming to showcase what we can all look forward to on the big day. Truly, it is a strange feeling to speak of an opening date of an aviation project and it be in line with the originally promoted completion date. This airport is one of a kind. And just like that, my hiatus comes to an end. Airline worker or not, I am back for real, baby. And I guess I will see you guys in 1 week's time.